Hello folks, great to have you join me. It's still learning English language with Uncle AY. So in this particular video, we'll be concluding the series on clause. And of course, we'll be looking at the last type of clause, which is the adverbial clause. It's on the board. And let's not forget where we'll be taking all of these from, all the way from clause, where we talked about the definition of a clause as well as its types. And the very first type we looked at was the independent or the main clause, of which we further looked at its subtypes, and I gave sentence examples. And just at the last video, it was time for us to look at the second part, which is the subordinate or the dependent clause, of which we also looked at its types. So we started from noun clause, right? And then we looked at the adjectival clause. So this right here is the adverbial clause to conclude this series on clause. So the question is, what is an adverbial clause? An adverbial clause is one that modifies a verb. It doesn't end there. So it goes on to modify an adjective or another adverb in the sentence where it is used. So let me go over that again. An adverbial clause is a clause that modifies a verb. It also modifies an adjective or another adverb in the sentence where it is used. So let's take note of the key word here in modify, right? Modifies. So that said, we have a verb here. That is, if it is not modifying a verb in the sentence, or maybe the verb does not even come close to, what we already identified as a grammatical name in the expression, then definitely an adjective has to be closer to it. Or in the case that an adjective is not even close to it, then it has to be an adverb. So either of this, right? An adverbial clause modifies. So before I carry on, we also have types of adverbials under the adverbial clause. Let's not forget that we had something like this under the adverbial phrase when we're looking at phrase, right? Good. So that's it. Types of adverbials under what? The adverbial clause. So the very first one here is what? Is time, which answers the question of what? When an action, right, takes place, or when an action would take place or is taking place as such. And then we have place, which answers the question of what? Where. Degree here answers the question of to what level, to what extent, right? We have frequency. Frequency here is the number of times something or an action happens or occurs. And we have manner. Manner here answers the question of how an action does or an action is doing. Okay. And then we have reason. Reason here answers the question of why, right? And then we have purpose. Purpose right here is quite synonymous to reason as well, answering the question of why. Condition here answers the question of on what basis or on what circumstance. And concession here answers the question of despite or in spite of, right, the situation. One will still constitute doing something, that is an action. So that's it. Concession here answers the question of in spite of or despite. So let's look at the first example here. And then it says, I shall contact you before you travel. I shall contact you before you travel. So what is our adverbial clause in this expression? Okay, so let's look at the build up to the expression itself. This right here is a pronoun. This is a modal auxiliary verb, shall. This is a lexical verb. This is a pronoun. This right here is an adverb because it communicates that of time. Did you see? An adverbial clause of time. So pronoun, this is another verb. So where do we take it from? Right? We take it all the way from, because we have our verb here, two verbs, right? So we take it all the way from here. Before you travel. Of course, it has to possess a finite verb. Don't forget that we're still looking at clause, and that's the definition of a clause. A clause possesses a finite verb. So before you travel is the grammatical name. So how do we put it down here? As usual, it becomes before you travel, end of quote, is the adverbial clause. So if you want to go further, since you are very sure of the pointer before here, what it communicates, which is time, right? Or the impression that it gives, which is time, then we could just go on to add adverbial clause of time. So like I always tell students, if you are not very sure of what this gives, the kind of impression it gives under the types, or what it communicates under the type, it's best you just leave it as adverbial clause, because going further and then instead of time then you include any of this, you get this wrong, you miss out on the mark. So that said, adverbial clause of time is our right answer, because we're very sure that it is that of time. So what then is the grammatical function? That is all of this we highlighted here. It's, let's not forget the keyword here. So it becomes, it modifies the, so what is it modifying in the sentence? Let's not forget, an adverbial clause modifies this, or this. So in this sense, this is a pronoun, and an adverbial clause does not modify a pronoun. So we have to skip this. This right here is a verb. This is a lexical verb, but then there's another verb here, right? And let's not forget that when I talked about the verb phrase in one of the videos I put out there, right, I said a verb phrase is one whereby you have an auxiliary verb as well as a lexical verb placed side by side in the build up to the sentence. So this is an example. You see an auxiliary verb, a modal auxiliary verb here in shall, and then this is a lexical verb placed side by side in the sentence. So what does it do? The grammatical name here, it modifies the verb phrase. So the verb phrase in question is shall contact. That will be open quote, shall contact, end of quote. So this right here is our answer. So the next question here is, let's do justice to it. It says it travels to Abuja as many times as he likes. It travels to Abuja as many times as he likes. So what is the grammatical name here, or what's the adverbial clause in this sentence? Since adverbial clause is our clue, that's what we're looking at. So this right here, a pronoun, verb, preposition. Abuja is a noun, as many times as he likes. So this is a verb here. So our adverbial clause would be as many times as he likes. So you can see that it possesses a finite verb, as many times as he likes, as many times as he likes. So this particular expression gives the impression of, you know, from here, gives the impression of an adverbial clause of frequency. Let's not forget I said an adverbial clause of frequency answers the question of how many times, right, an action takes place. As many times as he likes, that is the number of times, right? We don't know, but it is just so many. So that said, our grammatical name here will be as many times as he likes is the adverbial clause. So what is the function of what we highlighted as a grammatical name here in as many times as he likes? So let's go. Let's not forget definition. It modifies, right? So this is a noun. An adverbial clause does not modify a noun. Neither does it modify a pronoun. A preposition. So this right here is a verb in travels. This is a pronoun, so it modifies this. So all of this here modifies what the verb travels. So it becomes it modifies the verb. So the verb in question is travels. End of quotes. So this is all there is to, you know, an adverbial clause. There are many examples, even under the types, right? So anticipate the next videos I'll be dropping. Of course, it will include questions that I'll be dropping based on everything we've learned so far, all the way from phrase, and of course this particular one we just concluded in clause. So like I always say, don't forget to like, don't forget to repost, and of course do not forget to put a comment in the comment section. So do well to anticipate the next video. It's going to be very engaging, I tell you. Thank you for your attention.